up everyone, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing excellent out there. Thank you for stopping by once again. I'm Jay Booth from Jay Booth's Plants and Bonsai. Today we'll be going over a few tips on how to take care of your ficus. If you're having any ficus trouble or just want to ensure that you're taking care of your ficus as best as possible, then you're in the right place. And so without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. So we're going to start off with some quick exposition. Ficus originally come from tropical areas of East Asia, but you'll most likely be able to find one at your local nursery, hardware store, or sometimes even grocery store. These plants are a part of a family commonly known as figs, but they can also be called whatever that is. But anyways, there are tons of different varieties and species within this family, and most of them are evergreen. There are some ficus that are deciduous, but you probably wouldn't find them in a regular tropical ficus climate. If you're interested in bonsai, these plants make absolutely phenomenal candidates when it comes to that, and they're pretty commonly used when it comes to bonsai as well. These plants are usually quite hardy and not too laborious, so even if you're not really interested in bonsai, these could just make a good plant in general. Overall, these are one of my favorite plants, and they're pretty easy to take care of, and so I highly recommend them. So let's go ahead and start talking about how to care for them. We're going to go ahead and start it off with watering. As per usual, your watering routine should be based off where you live, what season it is, the temperature, everything like that is going to contribute to your watering routine. For instance, if you live somewhere where it gets really hot and dry like me, then you're going to be watering way more than someone who lives in like a tropical climate. Generally speaking though, I would recommend to let your ficus either dry out mostly or completely in between waterings. And so how do you know when it's time to water again? I go by a few indications, one being drooping leaves. This is probably the clearest indication that a ficus needs water. Your plant will pretty much just look like it's having a bad day or that it's sad, and all you need to do is simply just give it water and it'll cheer up. Another good sign is how heavy the pot is. If it's still a little heavy, then that most likely means that there's still some water being held in there. So you could lay off the watering until your pot becomes nice and light. That just means it's very dry, and so by then you should be able to water. If you want to be fancy, the easiest way to really tell is by getting a moisture gauge. This thing works miracles and it's a lifesaver. Easiest way to tell if your plant needs moisture with any plant, really. Not paid promo. When you do end up watering your ficus, you want to make sure to give it a nice, generous, and deep watering, just so that all of the soil is able to absorb some water. Root rot is probably the easiest way to kill these plants, and so to help mitigate that risk, just, let it dry out relatively well before your next water. You'll know you've overwatered the ficus if leaves begin to yellow and start to drop. That's going to be your indication that you need to, lay off on the watering a little bit. And so the main takeaways would be give your ficus a chance to dry out in between waterings, and when you do water, make sure to give it a generous and deep watering just so that all of the soil is able to absorb water. And it's as simple as that, easy peasy. We are going to next move on to placement. Ficus most definitely enjoy sunlight, and they need around 6 hours of sunlight per day in order to perform their best. I keep my ficus outside during the warmer months. They can usually handle up to around 85 degrees Fahrenheit before they start to burn. They mainly receive indirect sunlight just because when it reaches peak summer, it's in like the 110s, and that would just completely burn them. They would not be able to handle that whatsoever. It is finally starting to cool down now, and so they are going to perform a little bit better, and there's not really going to be a risk of having them burn anymore, so that's always a plus. Winter time or the colder months, I have to bring these plants inside because it reaches below freezing temperatures. Plants are quite hardy, but that is just way too cold for them to tolerate. The lowest I would probably go is about 45 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but at the same time, I really wouldn't even push it down to 40. That's just kind of causing a little too much stress that's unneeded. At that point, I would just bring the plant inside. If your ficus ends up getting sunburned and drops a bunch of leaves, then no need to worry. As long as your ficus is in good health, then it should grow back just fine, and it might even look better than before, who knows. If you're going to be keeping your plant inside just in general, you're going to want to make sure you put it right next to a window so that it gets that efficacious amount of sunlight that it needs. And obviously, if you're going to be keeping your ficus inside, then it's going to need less watering than if it were outside, so just keep that in mind, of course. Just make sure to check that moisture all the time. And so the last thing that I want to talk about with placement is aerial roots. Something that is unique to most ficus is aerial roots, but these can only be achieved through having a humid environment. But where I live, I cannot grow aerial roots whatsoever. It is way too dry. So if you really want to grow aerial roots, then just move to a humid environment, and it's really as simple as that. I'm just kidding. I'm not really familiar with the whole process of growing aerial roots in a dry environment. I've never tried it. All of my ficus that have aerial roots have grown them from previous environments, but there are videos on it, and if you really want to grow aerial roots, I'm sure you can check one out. The only thing that I've really seen of one is someone put like a plastic bag over their plants and then fill it up with like water, not like the entire bag, but just like mist it and stuff, and that'll kind of trap humidity. Logically, that seems like it would work, but I've never tried it. Maybe you guys can let me know if there's any other better ways to do it. But yeah, not too familiar with it, but aerial roots, if you want them, you need a humid environment. So we are next going to move on to our potting and soil. Ficus enjoy a fast draining and loose soil. They also enjoy a slight bit of moisture in the soil. I wouldn't really keep that little bit of moisture in the soil during the winter time, just because it's not going to dry out as fast, and that could obviously lead to root rot, which will kill your plants, and you don't want that. But during the summer, it's not too much of a problem, as the soil is going to dry out way faster, and there's really not too much of a risk when it comes to the hotter months. These plants do not require acidic soils whatsoever. In fact, they like neutral soil. Giving them too much acidity could possibly damage the roots, which will inevitably damage the tree, and that's obviously not good. We don't want that. The soil mixture that I typically use for my ficus consists of potting soil, perlite, and some pumice. I like to put a good deal of pumice in there just to help with the drainage, because I do tend to overwater, unfortunately. It's a problem. I just like to add pumice so it can help drain better. When it comes to potting these plants, you want to make sure that the pot you're going to put the plant in has an adequate amount of drainage holes. You really just want to make sure that the pot is able to aerate well so that it isn't building moisture within it. Something else to consider is the size of your pot compared to the size of your tree. You don't want it to be significantly bigger, as it could potentially stunt your plant's growth, and that is obviously not a good thing at all. So just make sure that you're keeping your pot relatively proportional to the plant, and you shouldn't really have any problems whatsoever. And so we are lastly going to talk about pruning and propagation. So why would we ever want to prune our precious plants? Well, if you're like me and you like to try and shape plants into bonsai, then that could be a reason, and these plants respond extremely well to pruning, and pruning is just a phenomenal way to promote new growth. Pruning isn't only limited to bonsai. If you just have like a ficus that's getting a little straggly or leggy and maybe you want to give it a quick little prune, then of course you're more than able to. I mean, why not? Give it a try. It's really just up to you at the end of the day, so have fun with it. You should keep in mind that hard and extensive pruning should really only be done during the late winter or early spring. This is mainly due to the fact that a ficus will grow best during spring and summer. If you want to do just like small trimming, you can do that all year round. For instance, like dead branches or just unneeded branches. Go ahead and just get rid of those things. You really don't need them at the end of the day. So small pruning all year round, but hard and extensive pruning late winter, early spring. So we'll lastly talk about propagation. The procedure for propagating these plants is pretty much the same as any other plant. Just cut off a branch from your ficus and either put it into some water or some soil. I've had more success when it comes to propagating them through water. It's quite easy. All you have to do is just change the water every 1 to 2 days, and eventually it'll start to grow roots, and then you'll be able to transplant. I have at one point grown cuttings through soil though, which does prove that it's possible, and if I'm able to do it, then you can do it. So just give it minimal watering until it, starts establishing itself, and then as it keeps going, just keep upping the water intake until you eventually just have a plant and it's no longer a cutting. Yeah, these plants respond really well to pruning, and you can propagate them. So no matter what the reason may be, you might want to prune your plant, it's going to grow back very nicely, and you can even try and grow those cuttings that you got out of it. So that's pretty much going to conclude the video. So there we have it. That is going to conclude our video. Ficus are truly some awesome specimens. I really do enjoy working with them, and I would highly recommend you get yourself one. They're not too hard to take care of, and they could be a great beginner plant, so that's something to keep in mind. So I hope this video helped you guys. Let me know if it did or if it didn't. Let me know if there was anything that I missed. I hope I inspired you guys to get out there and get yourself a plant if you haven't already. They will change your life, so get one. But yeah, thank you guys for all of your recent support. I really do appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you guys so very much. I can't say it enough. You guys truly make my day and my week and my month and my year. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for sticking with me and stopping by once again. Debu's Plants and Bonsai, signing out. Yeah, I'll see you guys later.